Hello and welcome to Spread Book Joy. Today I'm doing the 1001 Books tag by Miss Reads a Lot. If you're new to the channel, I'm Jack. If you're not new, welcome back to my channel. And today I'm doing two things I don't normally do. One is I'm filming in the morning before I go to work because I want to get this tag out and I don't know when I'm next going to have a chance to do that. And I got up quite early this morning, so I'm feeling full of energy. And also the lighting, I don't like filming when it's dark, so my time for filming is getting really limited lately. I don't know about you other booktubers out there or people who film anything, or taking pictures for Instagram, it's so dark, so there's a sort of limited window of time to really do that. So apologies for the lighting. It probably doesn't look that bad actually, but anyway, I'm going to try and also film this in one take. So I'm going to read the questions, answer the questions and see how we go. Okay, so question number one. Oh, by the way, if you don't watch Sandy's channel, go over and see her. She's the sweetest, loveliest person. She's so positive. She's reading her way through the 1001 Books to Read Before You Die list, which is a fascinating journey, and I absolutely salute her for it because there are a lot of books on there that she finds some gems, and then she finds ones that's just really, she works her way through them, ones that she doesn't necessarily enjoy, but she works her way through them. She's also reading a Pulitzer Prize book. She's doing some fascinating reading, so go over and check her channel out if you don't already follow her. So let's get into it. 1001 lists. Do you follow any book lists? It can be a prize list or a challenge like the Rory Gilmore challenge. No, I don't. I don't like to have my reading dictated necessarily by exterior forces, because that's when I get miserable. I'm a mood reader and I like to follow my moods. For a while I followed the Read Harder challenge, which should have something like read a book where a crime book where the victim wasn't a woman, or read a book where the protagonist is an older woman. I'm thinking of women ones for some reason, but there were lots of different challenges, not just about women, but you get the idea. But I didn't really do the whole challenge list, but I would try and tick some off as I did them, or see how my reading, if I could find any of my books that fit those challenges, I would. So that was quite fun, but I don't really do that anymore. 1001 books. Approximately how many physical books do you currently own, and how many ebooks? Well, physical books, I would estimate it's 500 plus. I'm going to guess 500 plus. Probably 500-600 I would say, but I've never counted all of them. I've counted my TBR unread books, and my physical unread books are about 100 and, well, when I counted them months ago and I've got a video on it, it was like 108, not including all the classics that I haven't read because I didn't include those. But my Kindle, let me just open up my Kindle and see what it says. At last count it says something ridiculous like thousands and thousands, because it counts your samples and stuff. So let me just see, filter. It's saying, oh, that's not so bad. That's not bad at all. On my actual Kindle, this is my Kindle app on my iPad, it said something like 1,000 unread things, and it included samples and articles and all sorts of things. But according to, oh no, I've got unread ticked here. That's why it doesn't look so bad. I was thinking 207 books, that's fine. It's 207 unread books. Let me untick unread. Untick books. Books. Let's see. 390. That's not bad at all, and I don't think that's including samples. So when you do it on my Kindle, it was including samples and documents and all sorts of things, but here 390, that is nothing. Well, really, in the grand scheme. I know people who've got thousands on their Kindle. I thought that was far worse. I feel good about that. Thank you, Sandy, for making me feel good about that. Okay, 1001 books read. Approximately how many books have you read in your lifetime, and do you keep track? I've only kept track on Goodreads since since 2012, as it turned out the other day. But I wasn't keeping track very well in the beginning. I think I've really been keeping track on Goodreads in the last 4 or 5 years of every book that I read, and I'm glad I did, because I have a terrible, terrible memory for books. But I read now, I average between, on a bad year I'll do 50 to 60 books, on a good year 80 plus. But when I was younger and a bookseller, and before the internet was a thing and before we had phones to occupy our time, I read about 3 or 4 books a week, sometimes more. And I miss those days. I don't know if anyone out here, pre-internet people, hello, if anyone out here misses that time that we seem to have. I seem to read tons when I was younger, and I know we all read a lot more when we're younger. I feel like that's something that life and things get in the way as you get older. But when I was in my 20s and I was a bookseller and a student, and when I was a full-time bookseller before I was a student, I would read at every available opportunity, on my commute, on my lunch break, in the evenings. If there was nothing to watch, I would read, because I didn't go online. You didn't go online. There was no online. That was not a thing. We didn't have phones to sit and browse through, mobile phones. I had a mobile phone from the age of about, I think my first mobile phone, and it was like a novelty, was when I was 19, and they were like those big chunky ones. They weren't for anything but phone calls. Didn't even do text messages. So yeah, I miss that time. Anyone else out there nostalgic for that? And when I was a child, I devoured books. So I would read like a few books in a day. Like, there were kids' books, and kids' books back then weren't the 300-400 page books they are now. They were usually anywhere between 120 and 200 pages. So I would sit and I would just devour them. I would read book after book after book. So I cannot estimate how many books I've read in my lifetime and how many I've read and forgotten. And I always tell the children I teach, keep a note, a diary, keep a book journal of all the books you're reading, because when you get older, you can look back at that and you'll want to remember those things. And I just don't remember half the books I read and what I felt about them. Sometimes I can remember a feeling about a book, like I enjoyed it or I didn't enjoy it, but I can never remember details unless it's a book that I loved so much I read and read and read. So yeah, I do feel sad that I didn't keep records of my reading when I was younger. All lost in the mists of time and my memory. Okay, 1001 Arabian Nights. Have you read any stories from the Arabian Nights? Do you have a favourite? If you haven't read it, do you want to? I haven't read it and I do want to. I'm planning on doing a project I planned way before I started BookTube, actually, where I want to read fairy tales and learn about fairy tales and folk tales from around the world, not just the Grimm versions, but I'm going to start with Grimm because I've got a few collections of the Grimm fairy tales, and yeah, I just want to get into that, and I feel like the 1001 Arabian Nights is part of that journey for me. So yes, I do want to, and if you do a read along of it, Sandy, as long as it's next year when I've got time, I'd like to join in. It'd be lovely. Okay. 1001 flavours. Do you have a favourite food or flavour? All food. I love food. Yeah, I love all foods. I love spicy food. I like pasta. Pasta's got to be my favourite. My favourite food of all time, and it sounds really dull because it's a really common bland dish, is spaghetti bolognese. It's a childhood comfort food for me. I very rarely have it, but pasta in any form will always win out for me. But I love wintry food. I love seasonal changes of food. So in the summer, I love crisp salads and gorgeous, fresh vegetables and all that kind of thing. And in the winter, I love soups and stews and all of that warming goodness. So yeah, I food of any kind, any description, food, drinks, sweet things, savoury things, I'm all in. Food is a big passion of mine. Okay. Actually, in fact, you should see I've got a load of cookbooks. I probably haven't got as many cookbooks as some people, but I feel like I've got quite a few cookbooks. So I might share some of my favourite cookbooks one day. All right. The 1001 pages. Have you read a book that is over 1001 pages? Is there one that you'd recommend, and is it worth the time? What is the longest book you've read? I'm not going to get it out. I've got the books over there, but I haven't got time to get them out this morning, but I'm going to put them on the screen. The longest book I've ever read is A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth, which is, at time of republication, was the longest novel ever published in English. And it's all about, I would highly recommend it. If you like literature set in India, if you like historical fiction, it's wonderful. It's a sweeping kind of epic about a girl called Lata, I believe her name is. And I think it's Lata. I may have that wrong, but she is, I read it about 20 odd years ago. I've still got my copy and I'd love to reread it, but I hear rumours around the internet of BookTube, people were like, oh, we'll do a read along of A Suitable Boy. It's wonderful, and it's about her mother's mission to find a suitable boy for her to marry, and it's just set against the backdrop of India's first general elections since independence from Britain in the late 40s, I believe. So there's massive political upheaval and turbulence, and just this, and these real they're interconnected stories of Lata and her family and people who are connected to her in her family in some way. It's just wonderful. I highly recommend it. The other books I've read over 1,000 pages. One of my favourite books of all time, The Mist of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley, just clocks in at just over 1,000 pages, and I love that book. I reread it a lot. It meant a lot to me when I was younger. I read it first when I was 13, and I believe the Brandon Sanderson first Stormlight Archive book, Way of Kings, is over 1,000 pages. I read a few 1,000-page books actually when I think about it, but 1,000-page plus books. But I love bigger books. They don't, intimidate me in any way. I'm currently reading War and Peace very, very slowly, but yes, I love 1,000, big chunk of a book. I love it. Now, 1,001 buckets. Do you have a non-bookish bucket list? What is one thing on the list? No, I don't really have a non-bookish bucket list. I'd love to write something one day. I'd like to have a go at actually writing something and putting it out there, but I just don't feel I have the I'm not brave enough to do that. I like to write, but I don't like to write and share it with anybody, which is really cowardly of me, I suppose. But yeah, I do write for me. I don't really write for anybody else, but I'd like to think one day I'd be brave enough to do that, but you never know. 1001 numbers. Do you have a lucky number? Is there a story behind it? No lucky number. No story behind any number. Dull. 1001 authors. Do you have a favourite author and or genre? My absolute favourite genre, if you've not guessed it by now, is fantasy. Now, you might not have guessed it if you watch my videos, because this year I've rarely read a fantasy book. I love fantasy. I think it's ever since it stems from my childhood, when my favourite books were the Narnia Chronicles, and the very first ones that I count as fantasy were the Enid Blyton Magic Faraway Tree books and the Wishing Chair books, where children go into magical worlds, and I always loved that idea of new magical worlds which were not like our own. And so fantasy always excites me as a genre, and it's such a boundary pushing genre, I feel like. And when I was younger, it wasn't really an acceptably it wasn't really well thought of as a genre, but now it is. And I think we have to thank Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films and the Game of Thrones series for fantasy being accepted as good storytelling in its own right, beyond just the sort of geeky people that used to read it. But I love fantasy and sci-fi on the flip side of that, and again, not read enough sci-fi this year. I love historical fiction. Absolutely. In my 20s I fell in love with historical fiction, and what else do I like? Favourite genres, authors. Favourite authors? I don't have a favourite singular author, but I'm a huge fan of Terry Pratchett. I absolutely love the Discworld series. Lots of people would know that. I love Robin Hobb. Naming fantasy authors right now. Who else do I love? Douglas Adams. And these are all like authors that mean a lot to me, but I also love children's literature. So yeah, I've got a lot of favourite children's authors as well. At the moment, I really love Kieran Millward Hargrave, who I'm going to do a video on once I've finished reading all of her backlist. But yeah, I've got Matt Haig is a go-to author for me lately. I really love his stuff. Who else do I love? CJ Sansom, because I love the Shard Lake series. I could go on and on and on. This is about my favourite author or favourite genres, but yeah, they're my really favourite genres. And I've been discovering a lot more classics this year. So classics is becoming a favourite. Is classics a genre, or is classics a sort of term for a mix of genres that have become classic literature? Because people talk about classics as a genre. Like, people are talking about non-fiction as a genre lately, and I'm like, non-fiction isn't a genre, it's a category, isn't it? And classics, I feel, is a category of books, because you get classic sci-fi with Jules Verne, you get classic horror, classic romance, classic mystery. So yeah, anyway, I'm digressing a lot. 1001 activities. Do you have a favourite outdoor activity? Sitting, reading a book is my favourite outdoor activity. That sounds really good. I'm really not a fit person. I don't hugely enjoy like very physical activities. I'm very lazy physically. I love a walk. I love to walk. I love a walk in nature. I love a walk in the woods. So walking's probably when Sandy's talking about outdoor activities, if I imagine of the physical variety, that is. But my favourite outdoor activity is sitting outside in my garden in the summer with a book and a drink, and it could be hot drink, cold drink, alcoholic drink, whatever. But that's my happy place with my cat on my lap as well. So 1001 book clubs, not a prompt but a question for the comments. Should I start a 1001 book club with a book of the month for a read along? Yes, do it. Do it. I'll be sad though, because I know I'll be like, oh, I can't do this because I'm so busy or whatever, but I would love to see you start a book club, because you will pick the most wonderful books, I imagine. And yeah, it'd be nice to be able to dip in and out of and join you for some of your reading. 10+1, tag 10+1 bookish friends to do the tag, or booktuber friends, and an extra 5 for the original tagged people. That's me, because I was originally tagged by Sandy herself, and I'm so happy about that. I feel really honoured. That's why I want to try and get this out quick as I can, even though that's why I'm filming at a time that I don't normally film at. So I am going to tag. Some people may have already been tagged, because I've seen quite a few people have done this already, but AJ Dunn reads and writes. Let me see. Beating Around the Books. Oh, that's a new person for me. I've started following Beating Around the Books since doing the Going Postal read along. Let me see. Books. Let me see. Bookhands and Books. Elizabeth over at Bookhands and Books. Jem at Gem of Books. Jim at Jim's Books Reading and Stuff. Kit of Kit's World. I think you were already tagged by Sandy originally, actually, Kit. If you're watching. Let's see, Mason from Mason in the Dark, Emily from Novell Novels, Ariel from Reading and Whatnot. You have to do this one, it's really fun. Nikki at Red Dot Reads, Hugo at Scientist Reading World. I won't tag Shelley Swearingen because I watched her video yesterday. I know she's already done it. Let's see, oh, so many. Alice over at Alice and the Giant Bookshelf as well. I'd like to see your version of this. And I think that's it. I know Kevy's been tagged already, so I won't tag Kevy. David over at David's Book Reviews, For the Love of Classics, Guy at Athena, Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and The Hungry Bookworm, because I feel like I've got 16 to tag. I don't think I'm going to be able to tag 16. Marilyn, Maya Mendoza, I think you've been tagged by Gina Stania, but tagged twice, you're tagged twice. And I think that's everybody. Yep, I think that's everybody I'm going to tag for the moment. Yeah, thank you for designing such a great tag. I'm trying to try and get it out today. I've got a very busy day today. I'm at school all day, and then I'm coming back and tutoring all evening. So in between that, I'm going to try and stick this out there. But thank you for tagging me. If you haven't watched Sandy's channel, go over and watch it. I'll link it in the description box. And if you've never been here before and you enjoyed my rambles, then think about subscribing by clicking the subscribe button, hitting the notification bell, and hopefully I'll see you again here soon. Bye.